Greetings everyone, welcome to video number 47 in the project management series presented by Process Geekoid. Today's agenda will be going over reviewing the PMBOK process table as well as the close procurement process along with the close project or phase review process. As always, please subscribe, like, and comment. So let's move forward. After having a signed contract in place and monitoring the contract performance, the last step in procurement management is the ultimate closure of the contract as a whole once all services have been successfully provided by the contracted supplier or vendor of our choice. The 43rd process of close procurement is very important and must never assume that contracts have been closed, because if the project or phase ends and the supplier is still charging you for services that you did not ask for, this will lead to cost overruns. To avoid this type of situation, there must be clear written communication from the buyer side procurement team, lead, or project manager regarding the contract team and the contract term for last date of service for the contract and getting it signed from both parties. As project managers, we take in the project management plan and procurement documents as inputs, and in the process we will use the procurement audit to see what went well, what failures we have faced, lessons learned during the contract execution. Also, procurement closure can happen multiple times for each component of or phase of the project, because, for example, if you're a project manager for constructing a car or a house, there can be many components, and each component can have a procurement or contract tied to it. Also, we will be using a tool known as procurement negotiations. And in this process, closing procurement, this is different because in conduct procurement process, we will conduct the procurement, and the goal in doing procurement negotiation is to specify contract terms and come to a mutual agreement before signing any contract. In contrast, procurement is done here, negotiations are done in close procurements to finalize payments and finalize claims and disputes. So all procurement closures have to be done prior to administrative closure or overall project closure, which happens once at the very end of each phase of the project or the end of the project as a whole. The key piece to remember from integration knowledge area is we can close the project or phase. So all procurements must be closed prior to closing the entire project or phase. In a nutshell, the 43rd process of close procurement is the process of closing each procurement contract. In this slide, we'll be going over the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs for close procurements. For inputs, we have project management plan, which contains the procurement management plan. Next input, we have the procurement documents. Recall that these documents consist of the request for information, and it is basically done before the procurement has been done and getting information. So this is important because we need to make sure that we have the right information and all the information in the contract is clear before closing it. And of course, we will also revisit the request for proposal or RFP and make sure that whatever the vendor has promised to do has actually been done, and verify that before closing it. And also we'll be making sure that the request for quotation has been fulfilled, making sure that the final payments will be made as outlined in the contract. Then for tools and techniques, we have procurement audits. And basically procurement audits are a walkthrough to see if there are any issues that we have encountered in the overall process of procurement. And procurement negotiations, as we had mentioned earlier, the whole purpose of that is we're going to focus on closing out the contract, and we are going to negotiate to finalize payments and finalize any claims or disputes between the buyer and seller. Then the records management system is important here as a tool because we want to make sure that we have a record on our end from the project management office that the records regarding the contract have been signed off by both parties, and to have a record of it we need to keep track of that in case we need to revisit it in the future and if the budget office has any questions. So making sure that we have a clear record that the contract has ended, and that will be stored in the records management system. Next, the output is going to be the overall closed procurements and organizational process asset updates. And in a nutshell, to revisit the close project or phase process for a minute, the close project or phase is important here because we are finalizing all activities across all of the project management process groups to formally complete the project or phase. For this to happen, we need to do the following pieces. We need to have a formal acceptance of the overall product, service, or result by the customer, which comes from the validate scope process. Then we will also have the OPA updates and lessons learned. Then product handoff and get customer sign off. And next step is going to be procurement or contractual closure, which is what we have been talking about. Once all the contracts have been closed, the last and final step is going to be administrative closure, where all the money is being paid to the supplier and vice versa. Also, final product, service, result transition is being made, and claims payments are being made as well. So procurements must be closed first, then administrative closure, and then last but not least is going to be measuring customer satisfaction, and that will end the project as a whole. So the key takeaway from all of this is that all procurement closures have to be done prior to administrative or overall project closure, which happens once at the very end of each phase of the project or at the end of the project as a whole. So the key piece to remember from integration knowledge area is we can close the project or phase, so all procurements must be closed prior to closing the entire project or phase. As always, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like, and comment.